Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Q&A. So it's been a few since we did one of the super Q&A. Today I'm pulling all the questions from people over on Patreon who specifically had the opportunity to ask me anything the damn well that they like, and I won't skip the questions, I will just feel obligated to answer them. So I have no idea what we're going into here. Let's just start off straight away with the oldest first. Coming in, first of all, from Eric Mail, who immediately was asking me about my music tastes, which is pretty interesting, I suppose. So he says, I know you've mentioned liking post-hardcore and such, which is one of my favourite genres of music. So what were some of your favourite albums of 2015? This is really weird. I've mentioned music that I enjoy quite a few times. But for some reason, there was an episode, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago, where I mentioned specifically enjoying the band Alexis on Fire. And everyone was like, whoa, you like post-hardcore? And like a lot of people have mentioned that to me. Mostly recently, I've been listening to kind of soft, kind of sad, kind of very acoustic-y music. A completely different style. The only kind of music I tend to not listen to very much of at all are like very, very niche genres. Or I don't really listen to very much hip-hop or rap or any of that kind of stuff. So I've also noticed as well recently, YouTube has this wonderful thing called auto-playing. I don't know if you guys realize. But like I'll find like a song that is very much in the limelight at the moment. So like for example, Adele, Hello, all right? And maybe I'll listen to that a few times. Maybe I'll like something about it. And then obviously YouTube starts auto-playing to other related videos. It seems like the algorithm that YouTube uses to do this is based mostly on the kind of viewership range that that song has. So Adele's Hello, I'll look it into YouTube right now, has got an awful lot of views. 992 million 45,690 views. All right, that's a lot of views. But what will happen is it'll autoplay other music videos in that range. And I guess I'm getting old. I don't know what it is, but when I'm autoplaying that range, I know that that's a way a lot of people discover new music and the way I should discover new music. But I end up just finding a lot of songs that I really cannot stand. And I'm like, oh, this is such crap. This is such trite. I have to turn it off. And for that reason, I'm a little worried. I'm starting to feel like a bit of an old person. I'm scared that I'm hitting that age where all of a sudden I no longer broaden my musical tastes, and I'm just listening to a lot of like stuff that I've heard before, which maybe I should try and avoid. Anyway, of 2015, I think the new band that I found that I listened to most of, I've mentioned this on a couple of podcasts, is actually Bon Iver, but the music isn't necessarily new. But yeah. Next question is from Thalandor46, very long-standing viewer, who said, now that we're starting to think about the Elder Dragons, back to Guild Wars 2, now that we're starting to think about the next Elder Dragon, I was wondering what exactly is up with the rest of them. We've obviously learned plenty about Zaitan and Morgemoth, and Steve Selbub remains a mystery, but I feel like I know nothing about the other three. Jormek has a champion that comes out to play every few hours, and Kraukatorek decided to take a walk one day and made everything purple. Hell, if I didn't know any better, I probably wouldn't be able to name Primordus as the last one on this list. So, what kind of in-game lore can be found about the remaining Elder Dragons, and what kind of threats could we see from them in future storylines? Arenanet, here's a comment I've come out with recently about Arenanet, and I still stand by it, and that's that they have struggled to deliver the Elder Dragon as a threat storyline. And one of the reasons they've struggled with this was because they have a lot of their dragons not doing anything. They're very static. They're just waiting around for us to kill them. And for us to really care about killing an enemy that really has no interesting dynamic or intelligence or smarts, right? Morgemoth was great because he did at least talk to us, though they made out like he was the Elder Dragon of Mine, so I'm not sure whether that's going to happen with the others. But so he was a step above, but still their motivations are kind of bland, right? It's just like, oh yeah, I'm just eating magic. All right, there you go, that's it. What, you're going to blame me for eating, bro? That's as deep as we're ever going to get. So to make it really seem very, very cool to fight them, they have to be damn threatening, and they have to be taking a lot of stuff away from us, and they have to be very active, and they're not active, are they? Zaitan, though he'd done stuff in the story, though some of them have done stuff, in the 250 years between the two games, we as players see so little of it. Even Morgemoth, right? Like I explained this when I did the story review. Morgemoth, at most you can associate with the destruction of Lion's Arch, which is now, Lion's Arch in some ways is better than it's ever been before, and that was only done through a proxy, another character, Scarlet, in the first place. So, and it's obvious mechanically that Arenanet can't have these dragons move around. I think one out that they could have had would have been if they had given us more lore, more stories about the rest of their planet rather than just the continent of Tyria. If we'd been hearing more about not just Cantha and Alona, but, you know, other areas on that Tyrian supercontinent we now know exists, right? And they probably have no prepared lore about whatsoever. If we knew, as players, something about those places, and there were consistent stories about, you know, the dragons actively destroying stuff, and those stories were continuing to be updated over these 3 years since the game release, we might feel like they're actually doing something, but we all know that they're not. They're just sat there. They're just wasting time. So when you ask what kind of in-game lore can be found about them, as in, like, new lore, there's nothing really. It was actually a really significant quote that Arenanet gave on their most recent State of the Game article where they talked about the New Living World. They gave us the idea of the story threads, and it was specifically mentioned that one of the things we're going to be looking into with Season 3 and beyond is what are the remaining Elder Dragons doing? How do they react to knowing that 2 of their brethren, dare we call them, are now dead? 2 of their own kind. 2 entities just like them have been destroyed. And that's very exciting. That's very important that Arenanet start to do that. Just because they've been stuck in the past 3 years doesn't mean that they have to continue to be stuck in the future. But for now, yeah, it just feels like they're standing around. They're not doing anything. Prime Ordis is underground, and, you know, we could be scared that he'll surface at any point, but we're not, because he never has. Alright, moving on. Next question is about as far away from Elder Dragons as you could possibly get. Oscar D. Sawyer says, hey WP, what's your favourite English football club, if you have one? Well, bad news, sort of, I suppose, but I don't have one. I really don't like football very much. And I think it's basically because of my father when I was younger. What he would force us to do, for those that don't know, football, soccer, as you'd call it in the States, is a very, very, very big deal in England. Very, very big deal. We're a bit notorious for football hooliganism abroad and so on. And yes, it's a big part of our culture. Pretty much all the kids, all the guys at school, they all love football, right? And, you know, people took it seriously, and every kid out there wanted to end up getting on a team and stuff like this, right? It was what you do every break when you'd go out to the playground or whatever, or even, you know, through your adolescent years. That's basically what people would be doing. They'd be kicking the ball around, right? So I never really liked the sport. I do basically blame my father for this, because what he would do is on wonderful, beautiful summer afternoons. Now, it's the middle of the winter as we do this video, right? So it might be a bit hard for a lot of you guys, unless you're in the Southern Hemisphere, to really think of this. But, you know, like really nice, hot, fresh, clear, blue sky days where you want to go out and you want to run around. You know your friends are out playing, doing something at the park. They're doing whatever. You want to go out. You want to roll down some hills. You want to play. I would be forced on these Sunday afternoons to sit indoors watching football. And that is not what I wanted to be doing. I didn't care about these teams. I never felt the weight of the fandom of the teams or where they were currently standing in their leagues or whatever the hell was going on. I never cared about any of that. I never knew any of that stuff. It was the most boring thing I could ever have seen. And I was forced to do that day in, day out, day in, day out. And I just decided, probably incorrectly, that, you know, I just don't like football. So I never ended up really supporting a team. I never ended up really getting into things. As I've got older, I still don't really enjoy the sport that much, but I do appreciate how much better it is to spectate now. Like when the World Cup comes round, I know what the weight of that competition is, and I'll go and I'll try and support my country, and you get involved with it and you can feel the adrenaline, and I know why people would love to go to stadiums and how people can really get into it and how it can be fun and how each little play is interesting and how people work the ball up and down the field and so on. But I, just based on those early experiences, football's pretty boring to me. That makes me a bit of a weird British person, but there you go. Linus Emma Grankvist said, hey WP, if you had a time machine that could only travel backwards in time in increments of 500 years and then back to the original time, when would you go? Okay, so when you say back to the original time, do you mean if we go back to the start of the universe and then we flip back, right? We come back. Can I travel in time multiple times? That's really interesting. I mean, 500 years is a huge, huge, huge jump. What does that put me through to? Like a long time ago. We're talking about the 16th century? Oh, dude, I'm not sure. I don't even really... What is that? When's the discovery of the New World? A little bit later than that? I don't know if I'd want to go back at all. It basically just seems like it's going to be Dark Age nonsense. Maybe you could dial it twice, go back 1,000 years, experience Rome, right? Would that be Rome? Maybe some other ancient empires? And then maybe for a real laugh, go way back. Maybe try and, experience some Neanderthal stuff eventually. Or go way, 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 way back even further than that, before human history. And experience, the time of the mammals and some of these fantastic beasts and things that I've seen on oh so many David Attenborough shows. But yeah, I don't know, man. 500 years, that's a big, big dial. If it was like a 50-year dial, it'd be very interesting. It's already pretty interesting. But yeah, that's my answer. Keno Arkin says, we know how much you love junk food, especially pizza. So do I. So what's your favorite specialty or topping? Oh, man. Okay, look, there's basically 3 answers to this. I always, like, look at people a bit incredulously if they have just a cheese pizza. Just a cheese pizza? What are you talking about? You're missing out on so much. Why would you just go for just a cheese pizza? Man, there's a thing, okay? In England, I believe, right? I think in the States, Domino's is supposedly not very good. People don't really like it. They would like consider it like a trash tier pizza. I don't know whether that's because Americans love pizza. I saw a video on Reddit the other day of somebody walking down a pizza aisle in his local supermarket, and there were an ungodly amount of just kept going and going and going pizza. I don't know whether it's because, you know, Americans are very finely tuned to the taste of pizza. You know, they're like Italian wannabes or something. I don't know about that. But apparently, Domino's isn't great. However, Domino's takeaway in the UK, all right, generally is regarded as very, very tasty pizza. It's good pizza. I like Domino's takeaway, all right? So here's what you do, all right? There's usually 3 things I think about if I'm going for a Domino's takeaway. Number 1, pepperoni. Classic pepperoni passion. That, I mean, you can't go wrong with that, right? Like, who doesn't like pepperoni pizza? Pepperoni pizza is like the majority of pizza. They do a really good pepperoni pizza. Boom. Number 1. Number 2 that I really like is I like Hawaiian, okay? Hawaiian, to me, is the general idea of having ham and pineapple. Some people, I think, will tell you just pineapple makes it Hawaiian. No. Ignore these people. You got to add the ham there as well, all right? And then you can, like, play around with it a little bit as well. Sometimes a little bit of mushroom on there as well. Good pizza. So Hawaiian I really, really, really like. I'd say Hawaiian's more of my thing. But then Domino's also do, like, instead of a tomato base, a tomato sauce on your pizza, they do some pizzas that have barbecue bases, and that sounds disgusting, I know, and it sounds really sweet and really sugary, and it basically is. But every now and then, I won't be able to resist having one of those, and they do like you know, lots of varieties of meats on their barbecue-based pizza. That's basically it for me with pizza, and I haven't really eaten much pizza for the past 4 or 5 months, which makes me sad now that I think about it. We may have to change that. Next question is from Doom Fairy, who said, who's my favourite character from X or X2? Okay, the first guy that comes to my mind, maybe I shouldn't think about this too carefully. The first guy that comes to my mind is Auron. I love that character arc. I love the idea that you've got this guy who... you can ignore the, like, spoilerish stuff about his state of being, shall we say. People who know the game will know what I'm talking about there. Ignoring that, though, the idea of someone who is lauded as a hero, who, no matter where he goes, is given utmost respect and... everybody loves him, but he hates what he's done himself. And I love the idea of him as a character that, you know, he's a young guy that thinks he can set out to change the world, thinks he's the big I am, thinks he knows everything about how it all works, sets out to change things, just falls into the systems, becomes what he hated, basically, plays into things, makes huge mistakes, and then spends the rest of his existence basically hating himself. But because of what he did, everybody loves him at the same time. And then also, you know, to tie a story like that, and then to have him as the mature guy, the thing that you, through your main character's eyes, look up to, that you respect yourself, and you think, you know, is this infallible dude, and then towards the end, he starts breaking down and telling you how it really is, telling you that, you know, he feels just like, at one point, he was just the young kid, just like you were, and he thought, it's really, really good. I think his arc is really, really fantastic. A bit cliche in a lot of ways, but also, I think that when you're looking at older products, right, and older mediums, older franchises, stuff like that, maybe it wasn't as cliche back then. Or maybe it was just because I was a kid. And it's hard to see what's cliche and what's not when you're a kid because, hey, everything's new and cool. So yeah, that's probably my answer. Probably Auron. Though there's a lot of other good characters for different reasons. Next question is from A Good Sandwich. Wow, great name. He says, it seems that with Heart of Thorns, there's been a lot of power creep, especially on the PvP side. You did mention Chronomancer as being especially annoying to play against. My question, should the elite specializations be on the same power level as the core class, or is it better to have elite specs be stronger than the core class? This is a question, and I mean, no offense to A Good Sandwich for us. This is a question that I'd usually skip because I feel like we've talked about it quite a lot. But I'll make my opinion on this very, very, very clear. No, I don't believe they should be on the same power level. I do not believe they should be on the same power level. I think that it's very easy to look at the game as it exists right now rather than the game as it will exist over a long period of time. I don't think it's a mistake for Arenanet to put extra power onto the Elite specs. I don't buy the argument that Elite is simply, oh, it's because you can only have one, that's why it's Elite. No, Elite has some inference there, some suggestion that it's powerful, that it's game-changing. And actually, I think that something that you can only earn in a specific expansion area after you get to level 80 should be something very cool and should be something powerful you go for. Now, yes, that means that when Heart of Thorns, the first expansion, comes out, we've experienced power creep. Why? Because they've added core specs that are... well, not core specs, that would be the wrong term to use. They've added new specializations that are by design stronger, right? That equals power creep. However, what's important is future expansions, when they add new elite specs, that those elite specs do not power creep over existing ones. The trainer, right, the warden, the next ranger elite specialization, whatever it might be, should not power creep over the druid. And actually, Arenanet are in a very good place because what they've done is they've allowed the elite specializations to be stronger, but also they've had them fill distinctive niches and roles, mostly. Some of them are designed badly. This is another reason why I think Tempest is a terrible elite specialization. But when you look, especially at Druid, is a great example here. I'm not using this by coincidence. Druid is a healing-based elite a support-based, should I say, elite specialization. When they add another one, as long as it's not trying to be another supportive elite specialization, it's going to be very hard to compare the Warden to the Druid, and it's not going to be clear whether one has directly usurped the other, right? So that's what's important. You can have, I believe, in 5 years, multiple elite specializations for all classes, and there's still a place for core specs. Every build will have at least 2 core specs, but I think we'll be in a place where everyone's build is 1 elite spec, 2 cores, and that's just kind of the way that it will go. You might think, oh, but then that's asking lots of money out of people, but really, you will only ever be a free-to-play account or an account that has access to elite specs in the future, right? Like, if you've bought the game, you have at least some elite specs. That's just the way it's going to go. So yeah, I actually think it's perfectly okay. I think it's fine. I think obviously they need to address the power creep right now that's happened in PvP and, you know, figure things out, which is what they're doing with the balance patches. But that base idea, I think, is solid. I think the main criticism you can come up with it is it basically it's like, oh, Arenanet are basically power creeping them so that we have more incentive to buy the expansion. But as a fan of the franchise and as someone who feels like they got their money worth out of the last expansion and hopefully gets more of his money's worth out of the next one, why would that bother me? It doesn't. Next question is from Alislaw, who said, as a little potato making videos almost every day about the same game, playing the said game most of the time and basically soul binding your livelihood to it, how do you keep yourself engaged and enthusiastic about it? Don't you hate it at times? Do you have any psychological tricks to keep yourself on point, or is it just suck it up and crank it out? Sorry if it's a bit of a downer, but this genuinely fascinates me. Yeah, I've never ever, and I can honestly say this, I've never sat down and thought, I hate Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 sucks. I've never thought that. I've gone through long periods of time where all I've done is log in and play dailies, right? Or even missing dailies. You guys all know one of my big opinions is that when you mouse over someone in game and you look at their AP, I would rather all you see is their permanent AP, not the daily and monthly AP, because I don't quite see how the fact that someone was more consistent at logging in every day somehow makes them, you know, a higher quality player than I am, right? And I only have that opinion, really, let's be honest, because I've missed a ton of dailies in the past. So, yeah, I've had a lot of times where, you know, I don't even get my daily, I don't even log in, I don't play, like, reasonable stretches of time. You know, some of the other Let's Plays that I've done on the game have specifically been born out of that, but sometimes I do try to stave that off, definitely. I haven't done it for a long while, but my tactic back in, like, 2013 or so was to... if I got bored of PvE, do a lot of PvP. If I got bored of a lot of PvP, do a lot of World versus World. If I got bored of a lot of World versus World, go back to PvE. And I would like naturally swap around as any of the other game types looked enticing to me. That's not really so true anymore. Why? Because I feel like there's a lot of barriers to getting into World versus World and doing it smartly, and I'm just not prepared to do that right now when the game type, the whole format seems so unrewarding to me. And PvP... again, there's barriers specifically that I don't really want a full team, so I'll like PvP for a little bit of fun, but nothing like majorly serious. So I've mostly just been relegated to PvE. And if I get bored of PvE, I only do dailies. I'll do stuff like Q&As, right? Like, my frustrations usually come at myself for not being inspired enough to do a video, rather than, oh, the game sucks, it's not got any content for me to play. I suppose the really interesting question that would reveal my true motivations would be something like, if I knew for a fact that I could play, I could do 30 League of Legends videos and all of a sudden be getting, ridiculous views, right? And that could be my mainstay on the channel. I could soul-bind myself to a different game and get ridiculous amounts of money from that. Would I stop playing Guild Wars 2 altogether? Is it that hollow of a relationship that I only play it for the videos? And the answer, honestly, is no, that's not true. I would still play the game. And I would still log in. I'd still be doing my daily raid. I'd still be getting as many dailies as I can. I'd still be doing, raids. But there's other things I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do stuff like the Zero to Hero challenge that we're currently going on. And I wouldn't, engage in certain other elements that really are motivated mostly by videos. In some ways, being a content creator on the game has given me more content, right? The idea of trying to complete the entire game without dying, I wouldn't do that if I didn't have an audience. It's a cool idea, but I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have an audience, if I wasn't making content out of it. It's the exact same as when I very first started YouTube. I soloed Prophecies, a game that was designed at many places for 8 players. And I soloed it. And why would I put myself through that anguish if I wasn't doing it to create content out of it? So in some ways it's helped me, and that might tweak and bias me compared to regular players, and I always try to consider that. Anyway, hopefully that's an interesting enough answer. I'm sure we could talk a lot longer about it. Next question, and unless it's a very short one, probably the last, it comes from Christopher, who says, do you think the Heart of Thorn story would have been better if they had required completing the Dragon Stand event, killing the mouth, before going inside Morgemoth's mind? When I played, I did the story before I ever did the Dragon Stand meta, and when I beat the story, I was so let down and disappointed that we didn't kill a dragon that I left the game for several days. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I finally tried out the Dragon Stand meta, and finally felt a sigh of relief there was indeed a dragon in Heart of Thorn. So, do you think this should have been a prerequisite? Oh, I absolutely agree. There's a couple of different things here, though. First of all, just because the Vine of Morgemoth is a big cinematic fight, that doesn't make it a satisfying final boss to me. It's funny, before I did the story review, I had a lot of comments from people saying, hey, WP, make sure you do the Dragon Stand meta before you try and assess the story. I'm just saying, make sure you do it before you assess the story. And they were right to tell me to do that, because you need to have all the information before you go into something like that. But I don't think that is in any way something that props up the actual end of the plot, right? It's completely separate from it. If anything, the lore specifically states that this vine is still existing after the final boss fight. After we supposedly kill Morgemoth, that's when that fight canonically happens. And that's offensive on so many levels. It means, first of all, that if I tell someone, all right, canonically, if you want to experience the story in the order it actually happens, I have to direct them to do what most people did, and that's, go inside Morgemoth's mind and kill him there and be disappointed, and then kill the vine after, because that's actually the order that the story's happening in. But then it also undermines the entire idea of the story, because the most devastating, dangerous, badass, cinematic-looking mob that's associated with the dragon in the entire expansion is still absolutely fine and on a repeating cycle after we defeat the dragon, the Elder Dragon. That's crazy. It's just so bad on so many levels. I think it should have been a prerequisite. All that stuff I just talked about could have been avoided if it was a prerequisite. If Arenanet had just bitten the bullet and said, right, no, we need to encourage people to do the Zergy-based stuff. We need to encourage people in our MMO to play together. Let's do it. If they want to have a big cinematic fight like that, I don't think they can have their cake and eat it too, based on the way that the Heart of Thorn stuff went. I think it's a real shame. I think a lot of players will have done what you did, and they would have quit, and they may not have come back after 2 weeks or ever experienced that at all. I think it was really badly done. And once again, we're seeing good design and obvious decisions be removed in the name of accessibility. And I don't care for that. I really don't. I, as a player, would not have minded being forced into a Dragon Stand map to finish the story. I, as a player, would not have been sad to have experienced some adversity to complete the plot. But Guild Wars 2's story, in a nutshell, can be described as that. We're going to let you experience the story without any adversity. And that decision was made a long time ago. Yes, in part when they decided we could solo it all, which is fine and a fine thing to do. But more importantly, it was when they decided that you could never fail a personal story instance. They decided, right, let's just let the most casual, brainless, drooling people experience all of the story. They will never come across adversity throughout our plot. And somehow, we're also going to make them feel like it was a good experience in the end. And I just don't think that can be done. I think that what they have is a game where all the mechanics of the game completely undermine the severity and the importance of the plot. And if they had to force people to see the Dragon Stand meta event before going into Morgemoth's mind, that's what they should have done. but they won't have. I doubt they ever will. Well, that's a bit of a lame note to go off on, a bit of a depressing thought. Maybe you guys disagree. Especially, leave a comment if you are those people. Would you leave a comment if you would have been angry had you been forced to do the Dragonstand meta event to finish the story? That's what I want to hear. I'm very curious to see what the ratios are, how many people really are that. And if you are in that camp, justify it to me. Tell me why I'm wrong to have wanted the alternate solution. The one, where we feel rewarded and we have a cohesive narrative. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. There'll be another super Q&A coming up very soon. Still lots of questions there. If you want to drop any of your own, they are available over on Patreon. If you guys aren't aware, ad revenue goes way down after Christmas and so on. So anybody who does or has been considering looking at Patreon, it's like during these months that it is most valuable and important to me. So I would thoroughly appreciate any of that. I don't mean to get preachy, so I'm going for very long. But seriously, thank you to everyone who already is. You guys are basically holding my life up. Thank you. And yeah, anyway, all right. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great evening.